Tonight we begin our broadcast with an invitation that we recently received, an invitation back to the house of Yahweh. On our visit, we met with some individuals who carry with them history, but not just any history. They carry with them the very details of the beginning of a remarkable work, a work that prophecy shows would be the greatest work that would ever take place on the face of the earth. So, Ganaja, I'd like to ask you first, what was it like to meet Jacob's wife?
Well, Israel called me and asked me if I would pick her up at the bus station. So it was around 1 or 2, so I went over there and I was waiting, and the bus pulled up, so I got out of the car and I was waiting for her to come out of the bus. And everybody came out of the bus and she was like close to being last. And finally, when I saw her, it was, you could tell it was Luetta, you know, and I just walked up to her and I said, "You are Luetta?" And she goes, "Yes." And right at that moment, she just was so cheerful, you know, and she just was comfortable looking, you know, and just so at home. And she was just such a bubbly person and such a sweetheart. Very easy to talk to, yeah, very easy to relate to in any situation, and whatever you had, you know, a problem with, you know, it's like she was just great about doing it. You know, it's like her luggage or something like that. Everything just flowed really nicely, and I brought her out to here at the Double Wide, and she was just a wonderful person. I don't know what else to say about her, because it's just wraps it right up.
So how about you, Amaria? What was it like to meet Jacob's wife?
Well, I got to meet her more on the phone, because she would call the house of Yahweh a lot. And so when I finally got to meet her physically, it was exciting. I mean, like Ganaja said, she was very bubbly, spoke very quickly. You could tell she was a feisty woman, so she was full of a lot of history. So.
What about you, Mathea, when your first meeting with Luetta? What was it like for you to meet her?
I was excited because Pastor was mentioning her on the podium, that his brother Jacob's wife was here with us. And it was on the Sabbath, and she sat between me and Ganasia. And after that, we were invited to come here and visit with her that afternoon. That was my first time to see Jacob's wife, correct.
So Tanya, I understand that you actually had an earlier experience with meeting Luetta. What was that like for you?
Well, the first time I'm meeting her, she looked just older. She didn't change very much. The first time meeting her, I'm not sure how old I was, but it was when they had the first meeting on the back patio that Pastor talks about when he held the services, and his brother and her came, and I just remember things that stand out in my mind with Pastor when he acts a certain way, because he's very calm in situations. He's very, he's Pastor, but in certain situations he acts a little different, and in these situations he was excited and he was nervous. And I remember the first time meeting her, him and Kay, his wife at the time, they were running around. They were making sure all the meals were done, and they're having everything ready and prepped because his brother Jacob was coming. And that was a big deal to us children, because we had heard all the stories but never met the man. And when they came, they were all dressed in white. He had the long white beard and what you would expect to see coming from Israel at that time. And she was very polite and quiet, but you could tell she was feisty. There were certain things she didn't want to eat. And it was just a very exciting time, because it was dedication of the house of Yahweh, that land, that area, not realizing that you're seeing history take place right in front of your eyes. And then later on, coming here again to meet her, she's a little bit older, more raspy voice, a little shaky, still had the feisty attitude, her and Pastor banted back and forth, which was really funny to see. You could tell they'd known each other for a very long time, and she was very comfortable here with us. I think, if I remember right, she even made a comment about, a long distance family. So to her, we were her long distance family. So that was a great thing to be a part of.
What was it like for you to actually sit here and talk with this woman who knew so much about prophecy? I mean, without even really saying that this is prophecy, but knowing that these are prophecies being fulfilled.
One thing I remember, she was telling us the story about the house that they live in. It was just a little house, and yet 10 people fit in that house. And to me, it was wonderful to hear what the overseer went through as a young boy, as a young teenager, and yet he's very strong in the words of Yahweh. To me, that is so wonderful.
I just like how she confirmed. I mean, Pastor tells us, he told us about his brother. He told us about how they had the same likes and their zeal and desire for the Bible and for Yahweh, and to hear his wife tell those stories and tell those things about him. It was like you were hearing the same. It was like seeing Pastor, because he has that same zeal, that same desire, and you can see how Yahweh put them together. I mean, this perfect match of these two witnesses witnessing these things, even though they might have been miles apart for a time. It was amazing how prophecy was right there, not even realizing it at the time, but you were witnessing prophecy take place. Even with this woman who was, she was telling us what took place with him and the name change. We would have never known that. And the way that she told it, it was so vivid to stick in our minds even to now. I mean, you can see her body, language, and hear the raspiness of her voice. And she was a tiny thing, but she was like you said, a feisty one. And she had a lot of spirit, and I know that she kept contact with the house of Yahweh up until her death, even after her son came, and which there's others who can testify to that.
To me, she was like a testimony of all of the prophecies that she confirmed about Israel and Jacob. That you couldn't deny it. It was just like black and white. There it is.
What I saw, what I liked is that though it had been many, many years, she sat in the front row. She was there in services. She heard that sermon that day, and he talked about his brother. He talked about them being the two witnesses. He talked about all those things. And then as we sat around, they discussed even some of the stuff that she said, that he had said in the sermon. They discussed it. And she knew that her husband was one of the two witnesses. You know that she knew it. She said it.
How I understand that afternoon when she was telling us this story, that it was a very close-knit family.
Mm-hmm.
Loretta was a friend of the family. Her family was a friend of Pastor's family. And that's how Loretta and Kohan Yaakov got married. And by the way, Loretta was telling us the story that afternoon I could see the closeness of the family, that she is close with them. Even the brother, I remember she was telling about Margaret, Pastor's older sister, and she was a friend of Loretta. And so the way the story was being told, I can see that it was a close-knit family. And it's a beautiful relationship. I think that's what they have.
I've heard people saying, or rumors about that Jacob and his brother weren't seeing eye to eye and didn't get along and all these things. And just from the stories that she told us and the conversations that they said they had, you could feel the love coming off from her for her husband's brother, and that connection that they both had together as the witnesses, and to see that in play and to hear her say those things. Anyone who would ever say that they were separated never met them.
I feel like she was inspired by Yahweh without her even knowing it to just come here and to tell Israel the story about, like the conductor wanting to throw Jacob off the train. If he didn't have a name, if he didn't give it right away or something, so that's under stress or duress that he had to do it. But so it's like prophecy. I just was like shocked, because it's right in Scripture and it just fits it to a T, everything that occurred. But I then, when she went back and then she died, so it had to be like Yahweh's motivating her, inspiring her to come here. Why else would she come? I have no idea.
For more information involving these prophecies of the two witnesses, please call the House of Yahweh at 1-800-613-9494 or visit their website at yahweh.com and request your free Two Witnesses packet.